Sebastian, you're here in the States. How's it feel, man?
Good. I'm sore actually right now.
Why?
Other than that, I'm great.
Walking a lot or what?
Well, that's actually
You were in New York.
I was in New York for like 4 days before this, and there was a lot of meetings and a lot of walking, which I enjoy, but it's just like you kind of underestimate how big New York is sometimes.
Yeah.
But specifically, I tried Pilates for the first time ever.
Okay, got it.
And I had the privilege to, Erica Bloom, right? Yeah. She's like, I think she's considered at least one of the best, if not the best in New York City.
She's in New York, okay.
Yeah, and they were great. That was so cool.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's not, Pilates is not a very common thing among guys, I think. It's, like in general.
Yeah. What kind of Pilates? Is it like reformer or? Like,
both. I tried that and the other thing. I don't know enough yet, but I'm surprised.
Oh no, it's 100%. It works. I've only done it. I don't even know if I've done it, but I think I did it once with my wife. But what I've heard her say, and anybody that does it, it works muscles that are just you don't get in any other workout.
Yeah, that's the first thought that went through my head because I've been so like I'm such an athletic.
Yeah,
like my whole life has been so much about movement. Yeah, and I just realized immediately like, oh, I've never had the mind-body connection with this muscle before and this posture, and I was just discovering so many bad movement habits like right off the bat.
That's
and again, these are very good Pilates teachers too. Yeah. So like that's one.
Yeah, the way my wife says it, she says they make the mind muscle connection of like shift this and shift that.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah,
I think it's. I'm gonna start doing it. I think because it's gonna be so good for every other thing that I'm more serious about,
right?
Like injury prevention, stuff like that.
Yeah, you like to surf, you like to ski, right? That's your two favorite.
Yeah.
Thing.
Definitely, by far.
Yeah, it seems like a really good surf and skiing thing, right?
Yeah,
because training for surfing skiing,
because both of those are very much like being connected
body
to
awareness.
And like aware of where you are, your body and stuff.
Proprioception and body awareness, 100%.
And actually, my friend John sent me just a quick, like, short little article about the background of Pilates, and apparently it used to be just for men.
Okay.
Because like the guy who invented it was some German guy who struggled with. He had some illness, I think, or something that he had to retrain his body. And that's how he came up with it.
Interesting. So and then somehow it shifted.
Yeah,
let's
and we're gonna take it back. That's the goal.
Women, you can still have it too. We're not taking it from you. Let's just share it.
Of course.
Let's share Pilates. So what brings you to the States this time, man? You're doing some big things right now.
Yes. I am launching a product that I am so proud of, that I've been working on for like over a year now. Well, I'm sure we'll get into a bunch of topics that like surrounds that, but but like to directly answer your question, I'm here to just meet a bunch of people that I know from my various previous like endeavors, and try to see who is interested in helping me promote it and all that stuff.
And the synchronicity, I've known you for a while now, that I was like, I'll be in Austin such and such. You're like, I'll be in Austin like the same days.
Yes. And I honestly, this is kind of it's going to sound a little bit woo-woo, but I think you're definitely a very open-minded person. Like we've known each other, like you said, a long time now. And I think your audience is also quite like open to different perspectives on life. Like obviously, the scientific perspective is a very important one, but it's not the only perspective, in my opinion, that's valuable. And stuff like this, I was talking to someone the other day that I met at this wellness place in New York that was great, called Elani. Shout out to them. We were talking about this, how when you sort of really follow your true north, like you sort of stop pretending. And I can get a little bit more into my background and what happened to me to sort of get on this path. But if you really start listening to your true sort of what you really want to do and follow your intuition is the best.
There's a rhythm in life when it happens.
Exactly. And then you lock into that rhythm. That's how I describe it, and that's how I experience it a lot. So like everything, just like, it's not that you don't have any hurdles or any problems anymore.
It's not all
but there's
perfect,
so much that just happens for you when you do that, which is...
You see a threads of God, I see it as like a tapestry and there's a congruency that happens there. But like you said, you don't always see it, but you see it more often than when you're out of alignment.
Yeah,
right.
For sure.
So yeah, let's go there. What's your background? How did you get here?
Yeah. So I'm actually I don't have a typical background, I would say. I'm not like trained in any medical way, like formally, and I actually worked as a designer for the first part of my career, and I still am a designer very much. Like I designed almost everything around my new brand.
For sure. Yeah.
But I actually started. So just quickly recap. I was born in Sweden. I grew up there. I was very lucky to have a mom that she's from Poland, and they are even more, I would say, sort of traditional. Especially when it comes to like cooking and stuff. So she always cooked these amazing like organic homemade meal. Like every meal was homemade. I didn't think much of that, how like privileged that is in a way. Yeah. But and then also I was always like the only thing I did was like eat, study, and do sports.
Yeah.
So like I was so athletic my whole life, and of course, as a result of that, and sort of growing up near nature a lot, and eating this good food, I was always like very fit, and my health was like pretty damn good, you know.
Yeah.
And then when I started at university, college, I guess you would say over here, I actually like, for various reasons, I kind of hit a wall. I started a company at the same, like literally the same day as I started school. And yeah, basically I just bit off more than I could chew.
Yeah.
And I just, I burnt out. I had too much to do. And I discovered that my response to that was to develop an eating disorder. So that's like how I first came in contact with what it feels like to not be healthy, you know? So I just taken everything for granted.
I appreciate you bringing this up. Not enough guys talk about eating disorder specifically. I had the founder of Wonderbelly on the podcast, and he talked about it openly in his own journey. What did that look like for you, whatever you're comfortable with sharing?
Yeah. It's been like a journey or a process to get to this point where I'm very comfortable talking about it. Like I'm disassociated. I'm not that person anymore who that has that problem.
Yeah.
But it was a straight up binge eating disorder. So, and it's a good point that you say that, like, especially men don't talk about it often enough, but it's also one of those things that might not be taken as seriously as it should be sometimes, because it's food. Everyone needs food. Like it's both the most important and best thing for you, but it can also be very destructive. And I think that's so my point is that I equate my relationship with food at that time, those like couple of years when it was the worst. Basically, I was a drug addict, honestly, because it's all brain chemistry, right? Like when you eat certain foods, these like, you know, whatever, ice cream, let's say, and you eat a ton of ice cream, not a literal ton, but like you eat a lot, you get all of this like dopamine and whatever brain chemistry is happening at that time. And you get addicted to that feeling because it helps you escape from this situation that you created for yourself that you can't manage, and that you don't want to be in, essentially. And honestly, there was a lot of like unresolved mental stuff or emotional and mental issues that I've worked on for probably 10 years now that are much better now. You know, and I'm a much more integrated person, which is probably a lot like a big part of what helped me get better.
What did recovery look like for you? I'm asked before that, like how bad did it get, and what was that? Was it there one pivotal moment of like I need to get help, or was it recovery nonlinear?
I have a very very specific rock bottom moment. So to answer your question, how bad was it? It was multiple times a week, probably 3-4 times a week. I stayed up most of the night eating, just eating. and watching something stupid, just the whole point of this, it sounds so crazy to most people who are healthy, but the whole point of this was I was trying to escape my reality, essentially.
Yeah. And it's alcohol, it's drugs,
could
like you
have
said.
easily been. It's just my
other people, it's escapism can be many things. It could be sex. It could be
Exactly. So that was happening. I don't think that continued for more than maybe 6 to 12 months. That when it was that bad. But then there was this one moment. My friends from college, they were inviting me out, and I had already said yes, just a normal I don't even remember what we were supposed to do, but it was like a kind of an intimate, I had made a promise to my close friends that I would go. And then when it was time to go to this thing at I think it was a Friday night, I just, almost like an out-of-body experience, I just saw myself texting my friends that I couldn't come for some stupid reason because I wanted to stay home and eat instead of being with my, with my close friends. So that was immediately after that, I just realized this is a problem. This is not healthy. And that's...
Did you go to any recovery groups or
no, I that's another bad habit that I'm much better at now. I was not asking for help from anyone basically, and I was not, and of course that's hard when you haven't fully admitted or realized the problem yourself. But even after that, I did not actively seek help. I found help through reading, and this is actually part of why I bring this up, is that it's a very, very pivotal moment for why I started to then go very deeply into the rabbit hole of nutrition. Yeah. That's the catalyst for that.
So for you, recovery looked like educating yourself, reading. Were there any books that you were helpful, for anybody that's maybe going through this or knows somebody? Or spiritual books or self-help books? Or
I do remember I read 2 books specifically on binge eating and stuff like that, but they weren't that helpful. They weren't, they were kind of written by someone who hadn't really solved the problem themselves. I feel like trying to think.
So was it more nutrition, learning about nutrition that got you out of it? Okay.
Yeah, for sure. So that's another aspect of it. At the time I was experimenting with all of these different diets because it all sort of happened all at once, where I started to lose some of my former health and sort of vibrancy, I guess. And that made me start to question my diet and all of these different choices I was making. I was trying all of these different types of fasting. I was vegan for I think 10 months, and I was vegetarian for 12 months before that, or more even, I think. And then I actually found Paul Saladino's book, and I became fully carnivore for probably almost 6 months. And that was very helpful at that time. I'm not carnivore anymore. There's much more complexity and nuance to it, I think, that we can get into soon.
And that's an interesting topic, because it's you and I have talked about this before. It's when you go and talk about eating disorders, and then you talk about healthy foods and different ways of eating, whether it's vegan or carnivore, or any intermittent fasting is another thing that's a hot button topic when you talk about coming out of eating disorders, that it, for some people, can become obsessive too. And it's a sort of orthorexia and super strict and a hyper focus and obsession about healthy foods.
Yeah.
Right? That could be good in theory, but it's just the energy and the obsession is not good. Yeah. So how did you check yourself to be okay, I was binging, now I'm going for these nutrient dense whole foods, but I could become obsessive with that too.
Yeah.
Too extreme.
I didn't check myself. I was obsessed. I was very, passionate about being vegan for a while. I was very passionate about carnivore is the only way for a while. I've been in all the camps,
Yeah.
And then
so I get it. So you kind of took that focus into something else.
Yeah,
into eating.
What ended up, honestly, for me, the path forward was to just learn more, more and more knowledge, experiment with myself. Yeah. And then, of course, I built, I started this other company that was in the health space that you were also a little bit involved with. Got and I was also active on social media and stuff in this community of like health seekers, I believe you call them.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, just from my own learning and from my own experimentation, and then from knowing so many other people, I just started to develop much more nuance.
Yeah, because you have, I mean, what I know about you now, you have like, you definitely know what foods love you back, but you're not like obsessive at all. Like you're able to, we were just talking about this the other day, like you're able to have different foods, no problem. Yeah. So that's an art form. That's why I call the podcast this, of learning the art of being well and not just following the rules. Like you found that. So what, I guess like for anybody that's like, I want to learn that. I don't want to be hyper-focused. I don't want to eat this rigid, obsessive health food. I want to learn this art of being well. What was that for you? Was it just time?
It's an amazing analogy, actually, or like calling it an art is quite fitting. Yeah, I would say, because like if you think about art, it's like very much to do with the flow state and just like sort of intuition. Not really being just like acting in a natural flow, not really thinking too much. And that's what eating is supposed to be like, you know? Like we're not supposed to be obsessed. Like there are some exceptions. Some people are very nerdy about this stuff and they just made it their thing to be incredibly data driven and just like know every little tiny detail about everything. But most people, like you said, just want to like eat tasty food that loves them back, so that nourishes them and powers their like sort of, so they can show up in the world and feel good and perform well. Yeah, like that's what most people want. Yeah. How do you do that? Again, okay, so we can get into this because like there's so much nuance here. Yeah. One thing is bio-individuality, like you talk about a lot, but that's also like a topic that can be, you can get into that in more detail. Like, yes, there's one aspect of it is that we are fundamentally different in certain genetic ways because of our ancestry and stuff like that. Like as a foundation, so we have slightly different circumstances. But then there's the aspect of time and your unique situation. So again, what I said before, I'm not the same person I was like 7 years ago when it was the worst. Yeah. All of my cells have been regenerated. I'm not the same person. Same thing with anyone who's listening. One food that you react to in a certain way today could be totally fine later. And it could also be that your goals shift. So like if you don't eat many carbs now, but then you start doing a lot of serious training, you might benefit from a lot of carbs all of a sudden and stuff like that. Yeah. So
I guess you're saying is like check in with your body, being intuitive. Don't let let your intuition trump the rules.
Yeah, and also like be willing to accept that something might be radical. Like the carnivore diet is a very radical thing for many people, but it might be worth accepting that reality for a while and sort of realizing it's not forever. It's a pathway to something else where you are more like balanced and in tune with this art of eating.
Yeah, that's how I explained it to telehealth patients is that, for a time, we may need a proverbial cast. Like if someone has a broken bone, there's a time to mend. There's a time to heal and incubate and mend a broken immune system, right? Or it's not broken, but a fractured, dysregulated, hypervigilant response. But it's like you said, a lot of these ways that are maybe a little bit more, you can call strict or succinct or targeted or specific. They're not meant to be forever for most 99% of people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I also think that don't be too hard on yourself because it takes time, because like the way we start to really have true knowledge of something. Yeah. The reason I'm very comfortable in my opinions about this is because I've gone, like I said, I've been in all of the different camps. I've experienced so many years of not being so confused and frustrated about like, is this actually good? But it worked last week. It went well. And then this person said that I respect, and now I'm confused again. Yeah. And it is like you can't get around that. It's not supposed to be like if you think about a natural, like the way our ancestors lived, I should say, we're actually supposed to be just a product of our environment, and that's supposed to work well. But we still are a product of our environment. It's just that the environment is not great.
Yeah, well said.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
So, it's like you have to like sit in that confusion and in that like, in the process of connecting all of the things that you're learning about to your own experience. That's the most important thing, because then you really start to like, I have this internal confidence, like I know what's right. And this actually, I think, it makes me think of another important point, because we just spoke about, we just talked about bio-individuality. And that's kind of especially in like functional medicine sort of circles, that is a very popular term for good reason, obviously, like we already discussed. But I also do think that it's very true that we, as humans, we are more similar to each other than we are different.
100%.
It's just it's just the top.
Yeah, the tip of the iceberg.
Like a little bit, uneven in different places for different people. But like the basics are very similar. It doesn't matter who you are, where you come from.
Yeah.
And for me, that means that there is a relatively solid sort of objective truth to some of these things.
Yeah.
Even if we never will get all the way down to that truth, like it's basically impossible. But it's important to acknowledge that, because it's so, as you know, like diet is religion, especially online. It's so much just like
church.
Shouting matches.
The vegan church, the carnivore church.
Yeah, it's just religions fighting, like screaming at each other. Sorry, I lost my thread a little bit.
But there's tribalism, right? There's tribalism with food, right? These food wars. So let's talk about that. Like you've been in both camps. You've been in the vegan camp. You've been in the carnivore camp. What we talk a lot about, and people are hearing people like us talk about nutrient density and bioavailability.
Yes.
Like, what do you think about those food wars between vegan and carnivore and everything in between?
Yeah.
But yeah, go on.
Let me see if you agree with this.
Okay.
Because this now I remember what I was gonna say, related to this fact that like, even though bio-individuality is important to acknowledge, it's also like kind of important to acknowledge that there is some significant amount of objective truth.
Yeah.
And here's what I want to see if you agree with.
Yeah.
From my own experience and all of these people that I know who have gone through the same journey of like being very, perhaps not all the time, but eventually becoming very intellectually honest with this truth seeking, with this like learning about nutrition and trying to find what's actually true. I think that almost everyone ends up at the same, like the end of the road looks the same. And it's almost like this midwit meme, if you remember, or if you're familiar with that.
With what meme?
A midwit meme.
No, I don't know.
It's this like thing on the internet where it's like a curve where beginners are very like, they don't know anything.
Yeah.
It's just a simple, just a simple answer to everything. And then in the middle of the curve,
oh yes, yeah, I have seen.
They make it super complicated, and it's so. And then when you get to mastery at the end of the curve, it's like again. The same. Yes, simple again.
That's really good.
And so I think sort of the term omnivore is like it's kind of funny, because I always used to hear my mom again say this, that like omnivore, like eat everything and all that. And I kind of hate that term because it makes people lazy. It gives an excuse to not go and seek out the truth, so that you actually understand the what's underneath everything. But it is true that like, if you're intellectually honest and you spend enough time studying nutrition, you will inevitably, I don't think there's any like sort of you will inevitably end up with a conclusion that we as humans are omnivores with a strong bias towards animal foods when we can get them, essentially. And so, do you agree with that?
Oh yeah, I would agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
Because there's actually no healthy indigenous culture that's entirely plant-based, doesn't it?
No.
And when you look at certain fat-soluble vitamins, you cannot get them, and not just fat-soluble vitamins, but because you can get some vitamin D, but I'm looking at true vitamin A, retinol.
Yeah.
You can't get it in plant-based form. You can get beta-carotene, but the conversion is not great.
Yep.
You look at the true methylfolate and methylcobalamin. These things are not in high copious amounts.
No.
And I can go on. I mean, iron's another one that I see deficient in a lot of people, especially strict vegans. But yeah, I think that then you overcorrect and sort of strict carnivore, and you have problems with that long term for a lot of people too when you talk about different things. So I agree with you.
Two sides of they're the same. They're seeking an identity in this. And I've been there. I've been to all of the camps.
Yeah. If you had to say the bent for the human body, unbiased in your opinion, after being vegan and carnivore, is to find this balance between omnivore, but a focus on meat in general. If you had to say like what percentage of your food right now, what percentage is it meat versus plant-based?
If you look at the plate, like just visually, it's almost like 50-50. Okay. There's a good amount of meat on there, like every meal, most of the time. But there's also like, I eat a lot of sweet potatoes and stuff like that. I eat a lot of fruit. I eat, actually sourdough bread works very well for me. And there's a reason for that. It's not at all the same food as like a commercial sugary bread that you get in the supermarket. White rice works quite well for me as well.
Me too.
That's another thing. Like a lot of people think that you should eat whole grain rice. I don't agree with that because that gets to one of the nuances with plant-based or plant foods, is that they have these ways to defend themselves, and usually that's in the outer shell with something like rice. There are more chemicals there that are meant to protect the plant.
Yeah, the phytic acid, the lectins, the saponins.
So those are that's kind of a very good segue into continuation on this discussion, because that's what is very hard to see when you're so passionate and sort of religious about these things, is that there is nuance to everything. Like you can't. If you look at, like, there are many people who eat almost only meat that are very healthy and feel great.
Truly.
And there are many people who are vegan or like close to vegan that can feel
great.
Feel good. Yeah. So like it's kind of ridiculous to say that it's one way or the other, you know? But there's so much nuance, and some of those things you can't really get around. You mentioned that before. Retinol is one thing that you really can't. It's better to get it from animal foods.
It's more bioavailable.
Yeah, you get it in the right format right away. You don't have to rely on your conversion of pro vitamin A. And another such example is protein. Protein is not exactly the right word, because what we really need is amino acids. And a lot of the time you look at, like, when people debate, protein in this plant-based food compared to an animal-based food, you forget that, like, especially on like nutritional labels, I believe it's usually what you see there is what's called crude protein. And that's just the way that they measure protein. They just measure how much nitrogen is in the thing, and all nitrogen is not like tied up in protein, so it gives a very like it doesn't show the actual value of
skewed value.
Skewed value of what you're actually after, which is amino acids. Those are things that you can't ignore. That is better to get that from animal foods. And then just a very simple example, vitamin C. Like, why would you get that from anything other than, kiwis, whatever, citrus, stuff like that.
Oranges,
all of the fruits,
mangoes,
almost. So like that's just, there are certain things that if you're actually honest with it, it's kind of obvious.
Yeah, it's kind of obvious. And I think, like, back to my earlier thought of like, okay, there's a place for finite periods of times as a protocol for somebody that has food sensitivities or an autoimmune issue or digestive problems. Well, what Sebastian and I are talking about here, for everybody that's listening, we're talking about like long-term maintenance lifestyle.
Yeah.
Is like, yeah, maybe therapeutically for a time you'd be on something specific, but then long-term, like what's the average human baseline that most of us have, we all have in common? These nutrients come from omnivore, both and, not either or sources.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, we're all on the same team, like everyone's just trying to be healthy, feel good.
We are humans. Vegans are humans and carnivore are humans.
Yes. And everyone's trying to feel good, like minimize suffering in both themselves and in animals. No one wants, I'm sure some people want like to hurt others, or obviously some people want that, but like almost everyone wants to reduce, like minimize suffering for.
Well, that is an argument, because I've had telehealth patients over the years that are massive like vegan influencers. Actually, one is Swedish too.
Okay.
Rachel Brathen. Do you know Rachel Brathen?
Yeah.
She's a yoga girl, and she's been public about this, and she's been on the podcast. So I
talked to her recently, actually.
Oh, really? She's awesome. So she lives on her family's farm, and there's a Viking cemetery on her family's farm. I want to go to it. Like the stone is still there.
That goes hard.
Yeah, that is like amazing. Anyways, so Rachel's been public about this, so I'm not like, she shared this on the podcast and on her own social. She, for a long time, could not share the fact that she was a vegan. Her whole identity was vegan on social, and she wasn't behind the scenes at a certain point because she was my telehealth patient.
Yeah.
So she was an omnivore. And it was a big thing. Like her whole family identity was in that, and the social media and professionalism. And when it becomes a sort of religion to the masses on social media or in people's lives, they're not very nice. I mean, just like religion has created a lot of division, this is a type of fervor. But there's an added layer, I think, to veganism, because you said like murder. Like when you equate something with murder, it was as if the person that was vegan and not vegan then just started shooting up people and eating them.
Yes.
And that's how that they see it.
It's the easiest sell ever. Yeah. Like it's just this perfect combination of that, like trying to be good and like not hurting other beings.
Yeah.
And then you immediately rationalize that to like, oh, it's also better nutritionally, or it's at least as good as being omnivore.
You can't really solve that. It's how people's viewpoint is, but it's just like, that's how dark it can be.
Yeah, it's
like,
I've had some like some comments through the years.
I'm sure
that have not been fun.
What was like? Can you name one? Like some keyboard warrior? I mean, they just say all types of things.
Yeah.
I've had people send pictures of my kids to me.
Oh shit, dude.
Yeah. And
That's
say like they just basically veiled threats of like, I mean, this is how like militant that can be.
It is. Yeah, when you're sitting here like sensibly talking about it, it is wild. Like how can you be that like that's passionate about this stuff?
Yeah, that's how crazy they can be. Anyways, but so let's talk about some like I want to talk about like some interesting, uncommon, not talked enough about superfoods. Like, what are some of your favorites?
Oh, I have I have some.
Let's go through the list. Like, first thing that comes to mind, what is it?
Colostrum. It's probably one. It's pretty damn popular now, but it's also not it's not very easy to. It's usually supplements, right? So and that's great. Like it's in the product that I'm making as well. So like obviously I'm all for that.
But I was like obviously talking to you throughout the development of this. You searched the globe for like the most nutrient dense things.
Yeah.
Super smart formulation.
Yeah.
So colostrum's the first thing came to mind. Why do you like it so much?
Well, if you think about what it is, it's this like super milk, you might say. It's technically it's the milk that's produced in the first couple of days after a mammal gives birth. And in a very high level sense, it's basically meant to send this little baby off like this, it's meant to start a healthy life for this mammal. And the way that it does that is it's high in almost everything. It's high in protein, it's high in fat, it's high in carbs. It's got magnesium and other electrolytes in there, a bunch of different vitamins. It's very, very, very nutrient dense. But then it has a bunch of like more uncommon active compounds. Immunoglobulins is one of those categories. And
this is great for the immune system.
Yeah, it helps seal that. It's a protein that helps seal the gut lining. In simple terms. And then you have lactoferrin, which is like an iron binding protein. That also modulates the immune system. It is anti-inflammatory. And then of course you have growth factors like IgF1. That's the one. IGF-1 that helps build strong muscles and bones and stuff like that, and recover tissues. So it's like this super compound that
you can't mimic that. I mean, nature, you cannot mimic the array of nutrients within there.
And the amazing thing is that it works maybe not as well, but like it really works in humans too. Like taking bovine is the most common one, bovine colostrum. There's been like over 5,000 published studies, I think, on colostrum. And as for me, like, and what I'm doing now, it's maybe the most interesting is the research into athletes and how it can help, probably from the IGF-1 to help recover, but also because when you train really hard, it can cause stress-induced leaky gut, at least temporary, and that like colostrum has been shown to help reduce that reaction, so you can train harder and recover faster, essentially, which is amazing. It's great.
It is. It's awesome. So, and I will say this, that a lot of new telehealth patients will tell me when we recommend it, right? Because we put it in protocols, bovine colostrum. They'll say, well, Dr. Cole, you have me off of dairy. Can somebody with dairy sensitivity have colostrum? I mean, I'll give my answer after you, but like, what do you think? Because, well, I'll give mine first.
Yeah, I think you're much better.
Yeah, so I'll give mine first. I see very sensitive people for a living, right? The people have food sensitivities, digestive problems. I don't see an issue with it because especially when you get ones that are standardized, that are third-party tested, like they are, what you're getting in it. The lactose, the casein are in negligible amounts of these. So,
not much.
Immunoreactive aspects are not in colostrum.
Yeah. Actually, kind of the opposite for most people. So
So I actually see, I can tell you, like, the most sensitive patients digestively, they not only tolerate it well, but it's a significant, like for somebody that is sensitive to a lot of things, I have found that you actually want to bring it in because they tolerate it, it makes them feel better, and it allows them to tolerate more things because it's improving the resilience of the gut. Yeah.
Again, like, it's both that it seals, that's like the whole purpose of it is to help tighten those like junctions between the cells in the gut, because obviously when someone is sensitive to something, it often has to do with the wrong stuff coming through into the bloodstream in the first place. And then it promotes beneficial bacteria over the bad
strains. It acts like a prebiotic too.
So
I love it. Okay, next superfood, what would you say?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, so just to back it up a little bit, like what I'm interested in now is basically to, again, feel and perform the very best that I can. I'm super serious about my skiing and my surfing, and obviously I want to perform in my work as well. I build companies and like design things that are I think are cool.
Yeah,
and like cool. I just want to be on the top of my, like, show up every single day with energy, clarity, and focus is what I usually say, and like not waste a day being like a little bit and so I basically looked at, like you said, I spent months looking at like what are the things that are a problem in the food supply, like what are the things that are a problem with our foods? What are other missing elements in our environment overall? And how can I basically consolidate that so I get like something that compensates for all of those things in as much as possible in just one simple thing? Because again, it comes back to this, that I'm not a person who wants to spend all of my day thinking about this stuff. I just want it to work and then, go out and live my
efficiency.
Yeah. So I did that, looked at all of these different foods. And then more recently, we actually spent many more hours creating these creating a simple guide. I call it the Natural Performance Nutrition Guide, because that's what I'm interested in now. Like, how do you perform best with only natural means? Like, how do you create a natural environment that just like allows you to unleash all of this potential you have inside of your DNA as a human, but that the modern environment kind of crushes.
Yeah.
So I like, that's actually, I'm so proud of that. Like, I don't think people realize how much time we spent and how many factors, like not just the exact like data, like how much of this nutrient is in this.
Like the therapeutic dose of it all.
Yeah, actually like how much we weighed in, like how much do you actually typically consume of this? Because it doesn't really matter if something is high in something when you need to eat 7 kilos of it or like this much of it.
Yeah, right.
And then again, bioavailability, just a bunch of different factors, and also how common it is for people to react negatively because they don't take the time or don't know how to prepare it correctly. And that this usually has mostly to do with plant foods. But we weighed all of that in and created these like really cool visuals of like, these are the best like 10 to 20 foods to get this nutrient. And we did that for all of the vitamins and all the minerals and stuff.
It's amazing.
And that's actually, I can share that link later, or we can do it in the description.
I'll put it in the show notes.
I would honestly truly recommend people go download that.
Guys, so go to drwillcole.com. It'll be in the podcast. It'll be on this episode. And I'll also put it on the Spotify, Apple Podcast description too.
Perfect. Because like, I think it's so valuable to just get such a simple visual. I would recommend it. But coming back to the question about like the most potent foods, one thing that surprised me that I didn't really know that much about before is mackerel.
Fatty fish.
Yeah, it just like keeps popping up. It's not the one that you think about when you think about like, hey, what's highest in retinol? That's liver. What's highest in vitamin C? It's like acerola cherry. So one of those like exotic fruits. And mackerel is not something that like what's highest in this. Like you never think about mackerel.
Yeah.
But it keeps like, it's high in almost every single B vitamin.
Wow.
Like almost every mineral, like iodine, selenium, like all these different things. And then of course, like you said, it has a lot of omega-3 fatty acids, which most people probably need more of. High quality protein, not that high in the food chain either. So it's not that problematic from a heavy metals perspective.
The mineral richness is interesting because the selenium, the iodine, so it's like a more mineral rich. Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah, it's amazing. Cool. I was so impressed. I was like, mackerel, yeah.
Where are they found? Like, where is mackerel found in the world? Probably all over, right?
Yeah, all oceans. I think. I'm actually that's I don't know too well, but I believe. But there are also different types of mackerels. I think that there might be. I think, is it king mackerel? Maybe that's quite big, so that might be a little bit more problematic in terms of like heavy metals.
Interesting. But I mean, shamefully, I don't even know. I've never seen a live mackerel in person.
Oh, in person? You haven't?
No, I haven't.
You haven't said. I haven't had the pleasure.
Hung out with a mackerel. I haven't had a mackerel on a podcast.
Yeah. No, I have. I've cooked them many times. Yeah. Like smoked or grilled mackerel is so good.
Yeah.
So good.
That's awesome, man.
Yes, it's perfect.
So mackerel, colostrum.
Yeah.
What else?
I mean, liver. It's not. That's quite obvious, I would say. But it's like it's the best source of retinol. It's the best source of B12, probably.
And for people that don't like it, they don't have, what are some other ways? If someone says, I don't like liver, right? Or it grosses me out, or maybe they've never tried it, but there's a aversion to it.
Yeah, for sure.
What are some ideas?
That's a habit thing mostly. We get used to all, like, it is. Like,
it is.
It's culturally, we're not used to it.
Talking about objective truth here.
Yes.
So that's the truth.
Yes, but some like effective ways to, like, some actual tools. Use a little bit and chop it up and do like a ragu or like a bolognese or something like that, and just have a little bit in there with the beef mince, especially with liver, because liver is definitely not strong in flavor compared to like kidney or something. That's very
or
heavy.
Sweetbreads or
yeah, exactly.
thymus.
That's one way to do it. I think that's great.
Yeah.
The other way is to soak it in milk. That's a traditional technique. That's another thing that that we kind of just left behind us now in this day and age, is that like all of these traditional ways of preparing food have a purpose.
Yeah,
almost all of them.
Soaking and sprouting grains.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's
fermenting grains.
It's another thing that's important. But soaking it in milk before it definitely helps. And then of course there's supplements. There's straight liver capsules. There's this thing that I'm making, which has that in with all of the other things.
Yes, you're hiding it within a delicious option for people.
You'll taste it after.
Well, I got some of the early. I've tried like probably 12. Like several different kinds in your development of it all. But today I'm going to taste like the final.
Yeah, and I'm so happy. Like I was a little bit nervous because I made one final little tweak. Yeah. For the last after I proved the final samples. Yeah. So it's like tiny bit nervous, but I'm
excited for it.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's
liver, macro, colostrum. Anything else?
Carrot, actually.
Carrots.
Yes.
I love that you're saying this. Let's not overlook carrots, guys. The wellness world's moved on, but no, let's...
The humble carrot. Yeah. No, honestly, it's like, it sounds dumb almost. Like it's such it's not the star of any show.
No, but eat your carrots. Again, you talk about the old cliches of, nutrition in our culture.
Yeah. And it does have a good amount of provitamin A, which then there are I believe over 600 carotenoids out there.
And they act, if you're looking at, they have so many benefits. Like I'm not dogging on beta carotene because they have so many other benefits from a carotenoid standpoint, right? But just the conversion of the one aspect of it, conversion is not
exactly, because but for most people, you definitely do get some. The end product will be a good amount of retinol. Yeah, but then you have the rest of the carotenoids that have like antioxidant effects.
Oh my god, like some of the best.
Yeah. Vitamin K is in there. Some B vitamins as well. So there's some of that. That's like it's not
probably like some astaxanthin, right? Is it in there? Zeaxanthin, these carotenoids.
Yeah. But then the other thing is that it has these different fibers. So like I usually actually. One thing I very often do is I either do a carrot salad or I do just before I eat, I just do like a raw carrot that I nibble on because it can really help. It's very low in calories, but the fibers help you feel full. Yeah. This is I haven't found any good studies on this, but like Ray Peat, he's one of those people who who's a proponent of like. It can potentially, these fibers can potentially bind estrogen, like excess estrogen and endotoxins and stuff like that in the gut to like help you not absorb those things that you don't want.
Yeah, and that's actually what I was saying earlier. I didn't mention this, but like the deficiencies, I think, of like a strict carnivore diet are these unique fibers that you're not getting, that you're going to get when you Bugs Bunny it up with that carrot.
Yeah, and again, might not be able to handle that for a certain period of time, depending on who you are, but it's great. Carrots are amazing. I
love it.
And also, speaking of that, like it is a food that most people tolerate. Like, it's one of the few things that it's included in a lot of the elimination diets. You can still eat.
It's lower FODMAP.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's tolerated by most people. All right. I love this. This is great. We're like ranking these like foods. What's the next one?
we probably have to say propolis, bee propolis.
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up, because that was one of the things that in talking with you early days, I was like, yeah, I agree with you.
Must have it, yeah.
You need to have this.
Yeah. It's such a sneaky, like, obviously not really in the food supply. You have to go to a really special, like, like organic store, probably, and all of those definitely don't have it, but some, you can find them in some places. You can find propolis just to eat. Like, it's actually kind of a nice thing to put on your yogurt or something. Like, it tastes pretty good to most people, I think.
Yeah.
But like, the most common access is through supplements. But what most people don't know, like, it's actually included in a lot of prescription drugs. Just like even big pharma is like actually legit using propolis.
Yeah, I believe
you've probably seen like these pills that you like when you have a throat infection and stuff. That's a common ingredient.
Yeah. So what, for people that don't know, what is?
Yeah, bee propolis is like the glue that holds together the hive.
Yeah.
It's like made of, I think, wax and like some sort of resin. It's basically their saliva, mixed with pollen and all these different things.
But there's these bioactives that are just
it's crazy. It's like more than 500 different bioactive substances in it. It's got, like, it sounds almost ridiculous when you say it. It's like antiviral, antibacterial, anti-inflammatory.
Yeah.
It's the word propolis comes like, it means defense of the city in Greek. Yes. And it's like that kind of tells
ancient
you a lot.
Rome talked about this, like they used it as a medicine in like ancient Rome, and probably earlier than that too. But it is like the medicine cabinet of the beehive. Yeah.
Basically. So immune function, like the two main things that I've found, like from the research, like more rigorous, is immune function and also wound healing. That's like the historical use of it was very big on when they got like a wound, they treated it with propolis. It's amazing. It's so good.
Any other rare, uncommon superfoods you love?
No, I don't think. I think that was mostly it.
The main ones. I love it. That's a good list.
Yeah. I'll tell you if I come up with
it. So if you just say, like, being in the States now, coming from Sweden, you're living in Portugal right now, right? Like, what's the main differences between European, let's say Swedish specifically, like Nordic culture and their relationship with health versus America? What's the pros and cons, if you will? What's the differences?
Yeah. I think there's the first one that probably most Americans might be familiar with, is that like healthcare is free or for everyone in Sweden. That, honestly, if I'm being honest, like that doesn't work that well anymore, because we have like from all the wars and stuff that have happened in the last like 10-15 years, we've have so many more inhabitants now,
right? Because so it's people have migrated.
And we did like, this is I don't want to get political or anything, and probably most people don't really care about Swedish politics here.
But I've seen it. It's in France. It's in England. Right?
Yeah, it's a hard situation to solve, obviously. But I do think that like our government did not have a good actual practical plan. So that's what we're
basically you're saying, from an economic standpoint, it was unsustainable to have the socialized healthcare. So it's not, the quality is not that good.
It used to work great, right? Because it was a system that was built up over time and everyone was contributing to it. But now it's like, well, mostly it's just like longer waiting times and stuff now. That's not that, and basically it just means that if you have money, you just pay to go to a private like place or something, which is, fine, but it's kind of like, it is what it is. But
it's interesting that, not to go on a tangent because we'll go back to health, but I've seen researchers talk about the war in Iraq and Afghanistan and the through line of its impact on the EU, because people were displaced, and they tied that all the way to Brexit. The UK leaving the EU was because tied to the Iraq war, which they were a part of all those years ago. It's actually the cascade of war is pretty unreal. And then you're talking just, it's impacting the healthcare of the citizens of the nations too. So anyways, I digress. War is not good. If you didn't know that, now you know.
For some companies.
Yeah, exactly.
And states.
So going back, so healthcare, it's not the best right now in Sweden.
No, but it's still free. Like you can just go and
it's free, but like what's your tax bracket? I always think it's like, do you pay more in taxes than us? I'm sure you do, right?
Yeah, I would say definitely across the board, yes. But then there are certain states, if I'm not mistaken, that have like pretty high. But like if you're a high income earner, it's like, I think it's like closer to 60% on the income tax. And then there's obviously like corporate tax and what would you, I don't even know what that is called in English, but when you make a profit in your business and you want to take that out at the end of the year.
Okay.
That's also taxed.
The capital gains.
Yeah, capital gains. Yeah. So I'm especially the income tax is pretty high. So yeah, I'm personally, I don't think that system works that well anymore, and I don't live in Sweden anymore, so that's kind of a little bit one of the reasons why. Mostly it's because I want to surf every day, and that's why I live in Portugal.
Mostly the weather and the surfing, but
but that is one thing that's definitely a big difference. But then honestly, like just a few days I've been here, I've been thinking about this, and it's the little things, but like still, like as long as those things are true, it's going to impact health, I think. So just one thing is serving size. Like everything is, and I feel like this is super, like I don't have any grounds for saying this. I just my idea is that it probably has to do with the US being very a very like capitalism driven country, which I personally am a proponent of in general. But like I think that the downstream effect has been to just like give people more for, try to sell more, give people better offers. You get more for less money, blah, blah, blah.
Right,
and eventually
wanting up the next company.
Yeah. And eventually you get to these like silly, this size of drink that I see people like cradling their drink like a baby.
Big gulp.
Yeah.
We call it a big gulp.
Yeah, exactly. But like that's just ridiculous to someone who's come from a different country, I think.
Yeah, it's true. I will say this. When I'm in Europe, I'm not going to go for the big gulp, but I do like a good old, like I get iced tea. First of all, Europe does not believe in iced tea. It does not exist. I still try.
It's not big. Yeah.
Sometimes they'll make it and humor me, but that's a me problem. But I want the Trenta size at Starbucks to get like my iced tea or my water or whatever. It's not big gulp size, but it is American size. So I have been indoctrinated too, because their big is like our small.
Yeah,
I don't know how you guys are hydrated. You just keep up to refilling all the time.
Yeah. And I mean, people are definitely waking up to electrolytes now and stuff too. So it's not only about,
That's true. Sebastian's calling me out.
Yeah.
You're right. And it is a first world problem having to refill your Starbucks cup.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's not a big deal. But that's one thing. Like speaking of Starbucks cups, it's crazy. Like I go to like almost every day I go to like different cafes. I sit there and work for a bit, and then I go to meetings and stuff. And in Sweden, when I do that, like almost every time when I sit there to work, I have like a stoneware or like porcelain cup that they have to fill the coffee and stuff. Here, everything is to go. Like either the paper cups that are lined with plastic or just plastic.
Yeah. That's a problem.
That's not good. Like
no, it's not. It's not good.
Bad from many perspectives. But of course, it's efficient. You don't have to clean up and all that. So
we're all about efficiency and waste here.
Yes, you actually are though. I have to give you this. I noticed this the first time I was skiing here, like probably 5 or 6 years ago. The lift system, like the queue, the line for the lifts. You have you have people standing there like directing where you go. Same thing with like the boarding a flight here in the US is much better than most other countries.
I don't know what it is. I'm glad that you said that, because I thought it was just me being a dumb American that only knows one way.
No.
I feel like we need to teach efficiency.
Yes.
I can only imagine in Asian cultures, they're 10 times more efficient than we are. But there's a spectrum. There's like Asian cultures, America, and then Europe.
Yeah. No, it's totally true. I don't know why. Yeah, we need to shape that up, I think, over there.
This is great.
Yeah.
So those are the main things. What is Portugal's system better than Sweden's, you find? Like just living there, the quality of life?
Quality of life, yes.
Okay.
Yes, like amazing food, super cheap. Like just everything, like almost all restaurants, it's very made from the ground up. Like it's almost home cooked meals in a lot of places. And again, costs almost nothing. And then of course the weather, apparently, because we just moved there 5 months ago or so, apparently in the last 2 years it's not been as warm, but normally like you can just walk around in shorts and t-shirts, almost like here in Austin, like year round. It's just like super nice all the time.
That's cool. Weather's great.
And then relatively nice nature and beautiful like scenery and stuff.
Is it tough with the language barrier?
Portuguese is not that easy. It's kind of fun to learn a few words here and there, I think. I feel like, but it's honestly, English is definitely, especially in Lisbon and Porto, it's most people can speak enough, so it's
cool.
fine.
Cool.
Yeah.
This has been a great conversation. As you know, the podcast is called The Art of Being Well. I'm going to throw out, this is your art of being well.
Okay.
What is the worst tasting healthy food that you eat for its health benefits, but it tastes disgusting?
Shillite, probably.
Yeah, that's bad.
Actually, that's a. I'm so impressed that so many people use it.
Yeah,
like it's still kind of a niche thing, I guess, in the health world.
But it's like a adaptogen. It's like a resin.
Yeah, a resin like from the mountains of like
Himalayas.
Yeah, and it's got all these like organic acids in it and stuff. That
fulvic acid, humic acid.
Yeah. I don't do, like I just do like a 1 or 2 sort of periods of that every year, probably.
Yeah.
So that's probably one. I wonder if there's a food. I'm such really the worst person to ask this, because I like everything as long as it's high quality. I like everything. More or less.
Okay,
so,
got it. Well, Shilajit was a good answer.
Yeah,
sure.
It is gross.
What is somewhere that you haven't been to that's on your bucket list, travel-wise?
Travel-wise? Oh. Patagonia is one.
Okay.
I love that brand.
The
Pants.
nice.
Patagonia is one. Florence, actually haven't been. I'm a big fan of Da Vinci.
Yeah.
He used to live around those parts, so I would like to see that. What else? Probably something that has to do with skiing, but I'm blanking a little bit right now.
Have you been to Banff, like Canada?
No.
You should do that.
Banff
or Whistler.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need to go there. I mean, that's
Vancouver, maybe.
Vancouver,
cool too.
BC in general, it's good. Okay. What is the weirdest wellness thing that you've done out of the box, unconventional, that you're willing to admit on a podcast?
Damn. It's a hard one. I mean, I wish I had a good answer for that. I haven't done any enemas or anything like that.
We had Jason Karp on, and he said coffee enema.
Yeah. A lot of people do those. I just haven't really done that. Weirdest thing. What would that be? I don't know, man. Like, probably the weirdest in terms of like what normal people do is like a 4-day fast.
Okay, that's pretty weird. It's pretty extreme.
It's pretty extreme. Is a better word.
4-day fast. What was your experience, yay or nay, after you did it?
Yay to do it once. Actually, I have a good answer after this, but yay to do it once or twice, probably.
A year or ever? Like, would you do it yearly ever? An extended fast, maybe not 4 days, but
it is like, obviously there's this like debate, or like there's some research saying that like maybe you will live longer if you do that, and it has this like promoting autophagy and stuff like that. But I also tend, like, this longevity stuff when it comes to decreasing calories and stuff like that, I tend to think that I'm not convinced, first of all, that that's true, and also like I'm not really interested. Like, say you could live 30 years longer if you every day ate like half of the calories you needed. You would be miserable your whole life, you know?
It's a quality of life.
Yeah, so I just don't care. Like, I just want to live full on while I live, and I don't really care how long I live if I do that. You know?
You don't want it to be a miserable existence.
Yeah, exactly. So that's But on the positive end, like I think a few very, very, very beneficial things that you will take with you for your whole life after that. You will learn a lot about how your body works in terms of hunger. The first thing that happens is that you get hungry when you at the times when you usually eat, and then when you don't eat, that just goes away without eating.
I've seen
which
that.
is interesting. Like you just kind of
It's like weird.
you experience your body as a clock almost.
Yes. And there's research to show that, like the gut microbiome has a circadian rhythm. Obviously, your HPA axis does too.
Yeah.
The body is like one big clock.
Yeah.
What was your second one that you came to mind?
Psilocybin.
I didn't know you tried that.
I took what you call a hero dose. And I also done.
Where was this at?
It was in my apartment. I live with a friend in Sweden.
So this was not necessarily the right setting.
Yes, like
Okay,
not necessarily, but it was because I had planned for this for probably 3 years.
Okay, so
like
you were
I
your
was
own
very serious
facilitator.
about this. Yes, yeah. And I had several friends, and one person that's like involved with this like central organization for psychedelics in Sweden.
So it was.
Yeah,
it was a little bit
he was there.
unconventional, but you were doing it with proper facilitators.
Yeah, for sure.
Just at your house.
For sure. Yeah, and like my best friends were there and like supporting.
And you were doing it for spiritual purposes, not for like recreational purposes.
Yeah, for sure. Like I felt I had heard so much good stuff about it, and I was at a low point in my life. It was before I had this new mission that I'm on now, and just like just really had this intuition that I needed something like this to shake things up and get some more clarity on these, again, like some mental stuff that I've been working on with psychologists and stuff for a long time now. It just felt like the right time and something that I needed to do. And it turned out to be completely true.
Yeah. What was one of the biggest takeaways you received through that?
The one that stands out straight away, and maybe even the only one I would... Well, I think I remember two.
I know it's hard to
things.
like verbalize these.
The one thing was, I'll tell you what happened. I was looking at, like, I experienced, it has to do with like comparison, like comparing yourself to others. And I was experiencing myself in my youth, like when I was, I don't know, 14, 15, something like that, in, the school environment. Everyone's a little bit insecure, and you are very much like, it's the time of your life when you're most like shaped into who you are and stuff like that. And I saw myself from the third person perspective, but not only that, I saw myself from the third person perspective, like from the perspective of everyone I had ever known at that time, at the same time.
Wow.
And I saw how so many of those people were almost certainly looking at me and being jealous of certain things and being like, oh, he's so whatever, and like feeling bad about themselves. And that really like bridged the gap of intellectual understanding for me about how dumb it is that we do this. And I was the worst probably before at like comparing myself to others and feeling, and also like I'm so type A and like ambitious, so I compare myself to the top 0.01%. And that's not healthy.
No,
that's a bad idea.
It's a really bad idea.
So like I will never live up to that. You know?
Right.
And so that was very, very like that changed my life, honestly.
So you started seeing that. Did that break that hold? Did that FOMO, whatever, comparison?
I would say it removed 80% of it.
Amazing.
Something like that. So again,
that's so cool.
It has to do with
and cool is
going
the right
from
word.
Understanding
Powerful.
Intellectually and embodying that understanding.
Yeah, I love that, man. That's so cool.
Yeah.
In one session.
Yeah.
Then I hear this time and time again. People that have gone through these, it's like years of therapy in one session. Like to get to that place somatically.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Is unreal. My friend, we have to go. Where do people go to learn about the amazing work that you're doing with Omni? Like tell them all the things where they get this amazing formula and what they do with it.
Yes. Yeah. So it's again, simple thing. I wanted something for myself that I could take with me on my travels, like anywhere I go to, like do my best work, focus, like be my best self. I wanted just one thing that was based on only natural ingredients, like ultra premium, because I want to take it myself. So I can't make something that's not really, really good.
Yeah.
And it's this like very convenient, like one serving that you take. It's a blend powder that you mix in a drink, and you get beef organs, you get organic berries and fruits that have different benefits. You get colostrum, like we talked about before. You get soil-based probiotics, which we didn't touch on, but I'm very excited about that. That's a very, very important one.
Yeah.
And then there's a very specific blend of adaptogens in there too, to really, again, coming back to this clarity, energy, and focus, just like to be able to wake up with that every day without having to take 11 different supplements.
I love it. And the name is so perfect because it's all on this concept of being an omnivore. Like, how do you get the best of both worlds?
Everything comes together. And if you want to look that up, you can, it's called OmniOne, the product, and you can go to tryomnione.com or just at tryomnione, or actually,
tryomnione.com.
Yes, tryomnione.com.
And one is the number one?
Yes.
Tryomnione.com. And I will put it in the show notes on drrookol.com. Anything else people need to know?
No, that's it.
Thanks, man. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much, brother.